Hi everybody. Thanks for coming along today. First thing, actually, I'd like to know where the camera to London is. Where's London? Oh, hello London. Super. So we'll try and be inclusive for you as well. This show is also going to Sydney, Australia. I don't know if you know that, but no one's watching actually, because middle of the night there. Exactly. So we're going to do active and participant-led learning today. So this session is billed as an experiential learning approach, which means I'll try and talk only about 20% of the time. 70 or 80% of the session will be given over to kind of guided learning activities, where we're going to draw out the fact that you know quite a lot of the things you need to know already. But hopefully as well, there'll be enough time for me to add in material from the experience we've had for over a year and a half in Australia on a big active learning project. As well, London, we're going to break this up into bite-sized bits. So we've got 2 or 3 activities. Hopefully some of you will have the links in the email that will let you carry along and kind of mirror the activity in a small group in London, doing what we're doing here. So we'll do things in groups, periods of 5 to 10 minutes, and then we'll kind of get feedback from the groups. Martin's going to be my microphone guy and run out to the groups and try and get succinct summaries from the groups about the gems, the gold that we can pull together and try and summarise. Where do we want to start? But got to start with a joke. I mean, I didn't know that I was so big in the UK. This is great, 40 people for a professional development event. Actually, I know you guys have never heard of me before, but it's a kind of a timely topic. Flipped learning and active learning. It's a very, very big buzzword in the States. They've got a huge flipped movement there that you probably know about. And in Australia as well. Though the lineage really in Australia goes back, as in the UK I think, a lot deeper. It's really about active learning and student-led learning and experiential learning and project-based learning and all of these sort of things that we know has been good practice for quite a long time. But you know, you go America, thanks to the Yanks for making it sexy and putting a new title on it and calling it The Flip, and we found it, we discovered it. Hello, you didn't, but never mind. So I think it's actually based on a lot of good research that's been happening for a long time in the UK and Australia. But it's okay, you know, the Americans have got the ability to make something big and muscular, so, you know, fair enough. It serves a purpose. One of the purposes it has served for us is it's really focused the attention of some of our senior leadership on the students' experience of learning. So that's the really good outcome. We're definitely moving in a general way, we're moving away from really re-examining the role of the lecture and how we do things to focusing on the students' learning and having a programmatic view and getting them involved right from first year in being really central in learning. Anyway, I've already talked too long, I've gone over my 3 minutes. What I'd like to do, as the first mini activity, is just to get you to know the 3 or 4 people around you. You may have come in work groups, but just check that you know all the people around you and we'll segue onto groups. Say hi. Just introduce yourselves. Hello. Oh no. We'll do something substantive. Otherwise, we'll give them about a minute to do these, and then this segue. Okay, guys, I'll bring you back in. Thanks. So we'll be doing quite a bit of this, and I'm sorry when I interrupt you because a lot of the times the conversations will be expanding outwards. But I'm sorry, I'll be a bit of a dictator at times and pull you back in. But I have one more mini task for you as well. I'd like you all to think for a few seconds about what you'd like to get. If you could get one thing professionally out of today's session, what would you like to get professionally of immediate or longer term use for yourself? All right, and think about whether you need to get it from me, or hopefully you think you can get it from knowledge in the group, or an ongoing connection. Okay, so try and think one thing that you would like to get out of today, and again, in those groups, I'd like you to discuss that for about 2 minutes. What can you get? What do you need? Very handy. All right, guys, we'll go on to think to the next stage. So, I think this, as an experiential session, what we kind of just illustrated doing this is in active learning, I've grabbed the centre for a minute, but really the centre's very weak. You know, it's not the presenter's place, it's not the sage on the stage. In our professional development, we tell our academics, they say, I'm going to cover some content. You go, okay, you're going to cover some content. But if you're still speaking after 10 or 12 minutes, you're really hitting an edge. You know, so really it's all about, a lot of it about is the decentralisation of power back to individuals. So if you accept that the lecture model is dead, if you accept that that's not a great way to learn, you know, the evidence tends to suggest that people listen pretty well for 6 or 8 or 10 minutes and then that falls off and they're trying to do scribing type actions and really there's not a lot of learning going on. So the whole premise of active learning is people arrive ready to learn, you've prepped them somehow, and as soon as you get them in, they're active and engaged in a meaningful way, doing good things with activities that lead to further learning. So you get that right, it's pretty magic. It's a pretty good thing, you know. So, and it's a thing about tinkering as well. You tinker and you do it better the second time, you do it better the third time, you do it better the fourth time. That's what people in Australia who've been doing it longer than we have tell us, and that's what we're hearing for our academics. We've been going for about a year and a half. Some of them on the third try are starting to go like, yeah, I'm starting to really get this now. My classes are humming. But really pull it back to what you just did. It's all about people, okay? And it's about people who engage. Now I've got a little I'm going to stop talking because I've just hit 3 minutes. But I'm going to do a little exercise next based around a Google Sheet. And there's a kind of a reason for this as well, but I think we'll just have fun with it first. So I'll pop it up. You don't all have to be on it, but this is a way of bringing the session to you before you get here. And I might add another sheet in a sec. Okay. Maybe a zoom out. Hello.
Oh, sorry for that.
No, come on in. Come on in. We've been expecting you. Seriously.
Okay, thank you.
Just take a seat up on that edge would be good there. So I might have a bit of trouble shrinking my sheet, and I might just in a second I might throw another column D in a moment. So if anybody is on that sheet, I'd like you to add to it locally, and we'll see it populate on the big screen. So see how good my spreadsheet skills are. And for me, it's got up earlier because I had to run for the train in London. It's kind of fun now. Can I zoom out a bit? Okay. That, Martin, can you pop on and tweet the address out for that?
It's already there.
Oh, it's already there,
Yep.
apparently. I don't know. But if anybody's on it, maybe you change your answer. There's a new column that said this morning or today, I wish I had done something different. I know some people maybe have a bit of trouble hopping onto it. Oh, really? Oh, yeah. It could be something I put on the settings. Disadvantage iPad users, maybe. We won't. we won't labour the point. Been able to use the lift, yes, agree. It would have been good, wouldn't it?
20 past 8.
Hey. London, has anybody got that link? Can you put some stuff up on the spreadsheet, please? Anybody else getting on? Be nice to see something going in. I learned a lot. Who's Michael? Who's Michael, the Blue Peter fan? Yeah. Is it? Go.
Got to bring it today as well.
You should. I would. Yeah. It's rather nice. So there's some pretty good taste in music in the group. But the point for doing it is we do a fair bit of work around distributed documents, and this is really caught on like wildfire with our students because we can have people off-site contributing into the room, and the scale can be a bit of a problem. But also for pre-work and post-work, We found it just one of the most effective ways. And the students actually really like this. There's hardly any barriers to people using Google Docs and Google spreadsheets. And the students find it quite easy and natural. You might find it interesting to know that we bought some expensive collaboration software in our learning spaces. And we trialed it before we bought it, and we looked at a bunch of different things. We didn't like any of them, really. We bought what we thought was the best of a bad bunch, because we had budget. We thought, we don't buy it now, the budget will be gone, blah, blah. It's never been used. So the software, collaborative software we found has got so much staff training costs time and so much intrusion into learning, takes 10 minutes to get it going, that sort of thing, it's never really been popular with our staff. So just in terms of people having access to the same space, we've found web stuff. Web stuff works, software doesn't. So I think that's been an interesting...
So because you own that spreadsheet,
yeah,
it's automatically updating with the inputs that the people here are doing. I can't do it from my iPad.
yeah.
Are people doing it from
No.
their laptop?
You can get an app for your iPad.
Right.
You need an app to work for a Google Sheet, do you? Yeah.
Used to work.
Well,
Used to work just seamlessly. But
yeah. Well, this is one of those things that you often hit with the layers of technology. But that was a pretty key learning for us as well. When we did our professional development approach in our new learning spaces, they're very high tech, and I'm an educational technologist. But before I was an educational technologist, I was a teacher. And so I was very determined to get the message out to our staff is, if you're approaching a change to your teaching, don't try and change everything at once. Don't try and layer technology deeply through it, especially if you're not very, very confident, while you're also changing your curriculum. So the message we put out to our faculty was, get the curriculum change right first, and consider doing it in a kind of iterative and staged approach, step by step. So we really made, in our professional development program, we really made the focus on people feeling comfortable with changing their teaching practice and their, basing their teaching around activity design and project and experiential learning. So the technology we've kind of eased itself into, and as you can see, the fact that I didn't know about requiring that app for the iPad shows you that, I'm not really a technologist at all. I'm a teacher. So a few people have given that. Excellent. Good. All right, we're going on to the next step. Super. What's up? Okay, we have a really high concept video here, which is kind of a nice, succinct summary of what flipped learning is. So I want you to, before I play this, I want you to have a think for a few seconds about what your conceptions of flipped learning are. So just have a think. Playing a 60-second video, what 3 things would you think they'll say about flipped learning? Got 3 things? Okay, I'll play it and then I'll ask you in the group to see if they caught those 3 points. Sorry? Yeah. Yeah. Super. And now we pull out your thoughts about it. You don't want to talk about it? Well, I'll run my session anyway. Sorry. That's all right. Here we go. So have you got 3 thoughts? Yep. Lovely. Hey? Oh, sorry, it was a positive and negative. I'm forgetting my session. All right. No sound. Wait a sec. So how did I frame this question? I am losing my way.
Watch the video and pick out 1 positive and 1 negative.
Okay, all right. And so actually that's a good point. I should backtrack. Sorry, apologies. So on that positive and negative thing, doing this as well is that thing about checking that everybody's pre-engaged. So what we often do in our teaching is the students arrive. We do something like a read, ask, tell, or a short quiz, or something like that. So that's a check of setting expectations high. So my apologies, I was going off on a tangent. Well, allied with this exercise, a good thing to do is to do, the show of hands or something that's checking that people did the work before they came. My apologies. So show of hands, who got around to watching that video? Hello, come on in. Super. Pretty good, 2/3. So now if I was like teaching a class, I'd say to people, all right, so then you get a little bit cross, you jump on the people who didn't do the video and so on. Okay, so yes, a very, very short group discussion again about, is it impossibly optimistic? A positive and a negative, you think, about the high concept of flipped learning. Thanks, and that video. Thank you very much. What I'd like to do now is to get some feedback from you guys about what the groups thought were the positives and negatives. But before we do that, I'd like to do a physical exercise for a minute. Exactly. One of the nice things about active learning spaces is they tend to be nicely spec'd up for space, so you can be active. So we're way too sedentary in life. So I'd like everybody to stand up for a minute, loosen yourself up. Have a stretch, kick your legs and so on. So everybody's standing up. All right, that's good. We've got nearly everybody up. That's good. Yeah. Come on. London. Rise up. Hey?
Horizontal in Sydney.
They're doing this in Sydney, but that's what we're going to do. So you've got two questions. The first question is a question that we're all going to actually spread our arms out. So just spread yourselves a little bit. Super. And it's also a trust exercise as well. So what we're all going to do, and I'll close my eyes first, all right? But I'm going to close my eyes and then I'm going to pose you a question. And you've got to close your eyes after me. So let's all close our eyes. Put your arms out like this. Close your eyes. So your group was talking about the positives and the negatives, and I gave you a good old long time to talk about it. So in the end, thinking about the balance of the group's conversation, with your right hand being positive and your left hand being negative, if most of the conversation was quite positive, put your right hand up and left hand down. But if it was very negative, you'd put your left hand up and your right hand down. So one of your arms should be higher than the other. Open your eyes, please. Right hands are up. Were people positive or negative? You're reverse. You're positive, aren't you? You were positive. There's a pool of positivity. Positivity. It's mostly positive, isn't it? Yay! No, it's good. Stay up. That's good. That's good. You're halfway there. You'll probably win. If you go into something with a positive attitude and you sell it to your students, you've got a good design. You've got a really good chance of success. So that's great. So the second question was a very, very quick one. I think everybody asked everybody to think about if they had one thing that they'd like to professionally get. We're about halfway through probably. You can put your hand halfway up if you want. Has anybody already got that thing? One or two people? Maybe it was connections? A couple of people have already half gone. They're on the way. Okay, not a bad start. Only halfway in. Not too bad. Great, guys, take a seat. What I'd like to do next is to get some feedback from the group. So, very quickly, Martin's going to help me again. This will benefit London as well. I don't know if London, we might see if they've... Martin, has London tweeted anything in yet?
Nothing at the moment.
Nothing, London. Come on. All right. I'm going to now, and actually what I'd really like to do is to almost keep it at the level of keywords. So super, super short. We might duck in for mini discussions about things, but almost like keywords or key ideas. And I'll nominate you guys, because I talked to you at length. Do you want to, from your group, a couple of the keywords, key ideas that came up?
Peer pressure.
Yeah, thanks. My negative was you have to make sure that the students have actually done the work prior to. So I am a simulation nursing lecturer. So in my second year students, we now flip the classroom and provide them with a lot of information. By the time they come back on the Friday, we set up 3 or 4 scenarios that they can follow around learning a skill themselves. It's pretty soon, sort of first, second week, in their groups of 3 or 4, that you realise that some people have done the work and are really, really good, some people haven't. But what that does make sure, especially with nurses, we don't like not being good at something, that by week 3, even the ones that probably haven't done it before actually do it. And peer pressure brings them right up to scratch. And that means the bar can then get set higher. And I've really enjoyed it.
I love that idea
really
about setting expectations of learners quite high. They will rise towards the standards. Yeah.
Thank you.
Important. Thank you. And
Hello. I was involved in getting students to do a bit more reading this year before they come to the lecture, and I went to a talk last September with one of our visiting professors, and they do this in Texas University, how you get students to play different roles in looking at a journal article. So I did this very earlier on with my first years, and within 3 weeks, and put them in very diverse groups. I picked the groups for them, but some of the roles were to be a connector, or somebody to ask questions, or somebody just to analyse what each paragraph was about, or somebody was picking a particular quote that was very relevant to what was going on. But they worked very well in teams, and it took them about 2 to 3 weeks, because each week I was getting them to look at different articles, but they had to come back to the rest of the following week and talk about it. So they quickly learned if they didn't do it as a group, they were named and shamed, so to speak. And all the information about they weren't working together, this was resolved before they came to my workshops. So, and they did different ideas. They got really engaged their learning. They set up Facebook groups to work as a group. And what I've done, I kept them in the same group, so they learnt to work with each other and play to the different strengths. Yeah. And even in my next module, when I had them, they were already at that level. They knew how to do it, and that was a learning process that they've gone. And hopefully, they'll take that on to the next year. So
most of the academics in our institution as well, using our learning spaces, have gone for the idea of fixed groups right across the whole semester. Students just have to learn to get on with it. The students who are underperforming in a group, they know it. You know, they get counselling. One quick observation from us is that sometimes we run usually 6, 8 or 10 pods or groups with a bit of technology at each pod, and we sometimes find some particular tables are weak. That does happen. Sometimes then there's interventions, but it's a really interesting thing. Groups can, some academics said sometimes, there's brilliant groups, but then there's these pods of misery. And this is like, it's one of those things, if you can identify it early, you've just got to intervene and say, hey? So it is one particular, you can have underperforming groups, and then you've got to do things to try and help them. Great, thanks. Well, I'll jump on to another. Martin, do you want to come over here to these guys? Make 1 or 2 points from your observations, thanks.
I think one of the kind of more negative points that we were talking about was just the increased workload. If you've got to, for students and for staff potentially, it depends, I suppose, what you do beforehand. So you could be potentially having to provide a whole lecture, maybe recording that virtually so they can watch that beforehand, and then coming up with something to do within the classroom, facilitating that learning. So you're perhaps putting a lot of workload on staff, but also on the students, and expecting them to do that beforehand. And I suppose it's getting that buy-in that traditionally they'd might be expected to do that reading and learning after the lecture, and actually we're just asking them to do it before. It's not maybe an addition.
Can we get the room's feedback on that? What are some of the strategies you can do to manage workload for staff and students, and how can you reward students for this extra effort? I'm using that because it doesn't maybe have to be, but everybody I think will chip in.
Over the years I can see where you're coming from, but I try not to get upset if things don't work or whatever, and that's the thing, I think, because it's a learning curve. for both you as a lecturer and the students, and they're learning, and you're learning to work together to find out how we all can learn from this, and that's what I've done over the years. But I think one of the things that I would like to do is try to capture it a bit more, those moments. And I know my colleague who sits down, she does whiteboards, and we take photographs and we put them up online.
And it's fairly light.
I want my students who don't attend to be able to have that feelings that they don't miss out because for whatever reason they haven't turned up that particular day. So instead of just using Socrative at that moment, you've got to put the quiz up online as well, which it probably is more workload initially, but I think we need to do what Danny says, do step by step, do it, change a little bit each time, each year, and you can progress.
And that other thing about, I like the idea of like a light approach.
Yeah.
So a lot of people talk about, you know, recording and podcasting and screen capturing at your desk. A lot of our academics actually don't do that. They curate the internet. They come up with activities. It's all reasonably light and bright in terms of their effort, but as long as it's a good design for learning, you know, it works nicely. And once you have gone the problem of doing the initial quiz as they come in the door, whether it's on paper or Moodle or Blackboard or Socrative or whatever, it's reproducible later.
That's what I was going to say. It was an awful lot of work to get this set up to start with.
Yeah.
But now it's done, all we do now is tweak and make it sort of a bit more fun, or if that didn't quite work, then how do we tweak it? So yeah, I do agree. It's quite a bit to start.
From a lot of the discussions as well, it sounds like there's maybe if you're going to do it sort of across the whole module, there's maybe a learning curve, and you've got to accept maybe the first few weeks.
Definitely.
It might not work for you as the lecturer and for the students, so that should improve.
I think with the lecturer, I think you go in there thinking this will be fine.
Yeah.
But it could
Good
potentially they would get used to say, I have no idea. You know, with us, it's slightly different because nurses, we do want to know these skills. You know, we do want to get excited by this. They've got to because they're out in practice soon. But we do find that it does work. But yeah, that initial one, they look at you as if to say, what are these 4 stations? What's this? Oh, that's part of that. But I promise it only takes a couple of weeks and then they get it. But they do then realise that they will have to put a bit of work in beforehand because we're not there to teach them, we're there to facilitate their learning and to help them if they're stuck a bit.
Yeah.
You sort of mean.
In a way, if you...
Actually, we might pass you the microphone for a second, then we'll
Sorry.
go back because I know you've got another one.
Yeah.
Please.
It may sound as a bit trite comment, but where I've done this stuff, you step into a classroom space with a group of students, they're all different.
Yeah.
And so the view I take to it is I know sort of where I'm going and I sort of know where they need to be, but it's a journey. And I think if you then look at it as a journey, as things don't go right, that doesn't actually matter. It just means that the journey takes a slightly different course. And I think if you can get that sort of idea into your head and work with your group, then I think it becomes much more powerful. I think if you're sitting there going, oh my God, it's not worked or whatever, then, you know, it's not.
You know, look, I identify with what you're saying. I use metaphors of narrative a lot in different contexts in professional development. But are you from the humanities?
Arts.
Arts? I'm in the business school, and sometimes you try and run that line. They go, no, it's about learning outcomes. By week 10, they've got to, and some, you know, sometimes in the health sciences, I think as well. It's going to be
They've got to know that.
They've got to know these things we cross off. Thanks. Do you want to actually just pop back to yes?
Okay. One positive point is that we can find that the flipping approach can make sure that the students be benefit for the knowledge extending, because in the traditional class, the students need to have time to take notes. So that means the lecturers have to wait or just to repeat.
Yeah.
So this means actually they waste of the time to do more.
Yeah.
But if we use a flipping classroom, students can complete the basic learning about these knowledges before the class. And in the class, the teachers can provide some further explanation or provide some exercises, extend the knowledge. So actually, it is very benefit for the students.
Can I just make an observation on that as well? I mean, you know, we've been talking about doing something with students as soon as they arrive in the room. So there's a test, there's an activity that depends on the pre-reading and so on. But talking about this efficiency, students will do the pre-work if the experience in the classroom is really compelling. So it's these things about pre-tests and so on. This is kind of a mechanism to establish a culture of performance. But in fact, once you've established that, what tends to happen in the really good classes, and you've probably watched that lovely video we made, is that students are saying, this is the best course I've done in my degree. And that's where we want to get to. More courses, like obviously I think it's statistically impossible to get students to say in every course, this is the best anyway. I'm not a statistician. But that's what we want to do. We want to have really compelling experiences in lots of places in our degree, not just in the 1 or 2 signature ones. So yeah, good point. Do it, they'll come.
Are you saying then not to get hung up on checking and testing if they've done the pre-work?
No, I'm actually, it's a good segue. I'm actually suggesting that I think it's a really useful embedded part of your learning design. So everything's got to fit together. So students expect to be tested. They expect it to be rewarded for effort. So if we're making them do pre-work and we're making them work in class and do active and experiential learning, and maybe if we're making them work after work, one of the essential things I think is we have to rejig the assessment pattern and reward the students for the work in the class. And the one way that's very concrete is, you know, like having a pre-test or project-based work in the class. So a lot of several of our academics, who I particularly like, have got rid of the final exam. Now that's great for the timetabling point of view because there's less competition for rooms at the end of semester. So one big hassle's gone, but the assessment is embedded in some of the courses more. So they get time in the flipped active class to do the project. They build up bonds and social work, as in that particular class, that video. They really liked it. Oh, this is one less exam at the end. It was all over by week 11. We went to the pub in week 12. We had a great time. I really bonded with these people. But he rewarded them by bringing the assessment forward. So I actually think it's pretty neat, but it doesn't need to be big. Students will work hard for 1%. They'll do work for 1%. Like we said, lots of little quizzes at 1%. And a lot of people say too many bits of assessment are crap. But I've come around a bit actually. There's kind of, in some disciplines, there's kind of a point to it. And students do work for it. So I also like the thing of doing quizzes for like you got 7 out of 10, so what? You did the quiz, you get 1. You know, like no weighting, but just doing it.
I think that what you're saying,
yeah,
and I think that what I have been looking at,
yeah,
it's to me one of the most important things in a classroom is like the relationships that people build.
Yep.
So there is that bit of I want to work because I cannot disappoint my fellow students. I cannot. I want to participate and be part of this group that are working together.
Yep.
And I think that from what I've noticed working in this way is that you have to, you are aware that there are several types of people who are more pushy or who like talking a bit more, and people who are a bit more introvert, who take notes. So I think that bit works with, as long, my problem would be that it's group dynamics, isn't it? It is something that you could get the one that's always working, complaining that the one next to him is not working, but it is part of any classroom. But
that's
I
right.
think
You've got to manage. I think you've just got to manage those things.
But to me, it's like if I am part of a group and if I've built relationships with these people, it's more likely that we want the group to get better knowledge of whatever we're learning, and that is a lot into what people can learn.
So one of the things I'd like to pull out of what you said is I really think it's a great thing about active learning is I think what you're doing in active learning spaces, or when you've done teaching for active learning design, is you've, I think, empowered a learning culture. Okay, so in a lecture is basically a transmissive medium, and it's not particularly a learning environment. It's a sort of content-dominated, scribing type environment. People learn later in general from lectures. So you're setting up a learning culture, and I think that's a great thing. But the other thing you're doing is, and I hope that we've had this demonstration today, is this sort of thing helps make learning visible. So there's a great guy from Australia called, I think he's actually a Kiwi. So this is a typical thing about Australians. If you're from New Zealand, you're Australian. I think John Hattie might be a Kiwi. Anyway, he teaches in Australia now. So John Hattie, and he's got a thing. Yeah, he's a Kiwi. Right. Thanks, Martin. Martin, of course, has spent a lot of time in New Zealand. He's got the saying visible learning. And I think that is a great phrase, because when you're doing active learning, you've taken yourself out of the centre. You spend 70 or 80% of your time watching your students, listening to your students, and you can, as you said before, you can diagnose what are the pain points, what are the muddy points, what are the points of confusion, where do they need more help, where are people getting it, who's flying, who's not. It is so good as a teacher to pull back and watch and listen. So I think that's a really key thing, visible learning, and you can change your teaching design and delivery a lot on the fly as well as you go along. We're going to have to wrap this session up in a couple of minutes, and I didn't get to listen to every group, but with the microphone, is there anybody else who wants to make a couple of really quick short points from any group? Go on, you do, thanks.
Thank you. We talked at length about this, and I perhaps would like to pose a question.
Absolutely. You have the microphone.
I'm really keen to understand what people think is the key to motivating individuals to participate in this degree of self-direction outside of the classroom. Because just look at us, only 2/3 of us did the pre-course work. What do you think?
It's not bad.
So how do you do that? Okay.
That's good, that's a start. Trust and?
I think the aspect you had, that they build up as a group and that they also thrive their peers that are maybe weaker or not being involved. They, over the time, they get involved because they have this group, they identify themselves with the group and they start to contribute. That's
And
what
it
my
doesn't
experience
matter
is.
whether they get things wrong or right or don't do it. Don't hone in on that. Let's just keep moving with this group working, I think is the best thing. And I don't say, oh, you haven't done the work and stop naming and shaming, because it's the culture that you've got to change, or habits.
And it's self-reinforcing, isn't it? A positive, exactly.
Start it with your first years, then they will know
Yeah.
what to expect. If you start it with your third years, it will be, what are you talking about? I have no
Yeah.
idea. Because they're used to normal face-to-face teaching.
Yeah.
So we try a little bit of this sort of in your first year, introduce it more in the second, and then we're up in the ante again for our third years.
That's the big picture, having an integrated program or degree focused approach to learning right through your curriculum. Martin and I talked about this. That's the best outcome in the year. Yes, sorry.
That's really interesting what you've just said there. One of my negatives was the cultural shift, and I think that's for both staff and students.
Yeah.
And coming into this, my previous experience of flipped classroom, of working or seeing a colleague's view to it, was the name and shame. If students haven't done the pre-work, you know, that's a big thing.
Naughty corner for you.
Yeah. Pretty not short of that, much short of that, but yeah, along those lines. And that was something that's kind of prevented me from taking the step to do flipped classroom, because
you would never have done that.
Yeah, I mean, working in the business school, we have, you know, students, we do struggle to engage.
Yeah.
And my worry would be that if I did flipped classroom, if a student hadn't done it, they wouldn't turn up to the class either.
Yeah.
And then it has a roll-on effect.
Well,
and I like
what you're doing. I never tell my students what I'm doing. Half the time I don't know what I'm doing. I think,
but I like that view that
I don't know what they're going to learn or what I'm
yeah.
I found out the week before I can't move forward because they've shown me they haven't understood.
Yeah.
So one week I've gone in and I said, oh, and they said, oh yeah, what we're doing, they're all excited, what we're doing today, and this is, oh, I don't know. I said, well, what did we do last week? I said, what do you really understand? And then they, oh, I didn't really understand anything, miss, really. And let's, you know, and go back and then we'd have to go back to basics and sort of go over things again.
It's that cultural shift. My view coming in here was, how do you work with students that won't do the prep before they come to class? And that was a major stumbling block for me. But it's quite interesting for people to say, don't get hung up on that. And that actually students might just come along with it. If they didn't do the prep, the likelihood is if you'd have set it for homework or you'd have done something else, they wouldn't have done that either. So possibly they're no further back than they would be in a normal classroom.
So what's your discipline area?
It's general business.
So management
Yeah.
skills and, okay,
Yeah.
all right. Well, I mean, one thing, as several people have said, one thing to consider doing is approaching the flip slowly. A lot of our people, about half of the courses did something like, we'll keep a lecture in 1 week and then go to smaller seminar-based groups. And in those, we'll do a project that runs for half of the course.
Yeah.
So that gave the students a focus, knowing that there'd be an assessment event tied at the end, and they're sort of dipping their toes in the water. So it'll,
Also, I don't do flips when I know lots of they're preparing other coursework. You know, and I know they're spending their time focusing on that. I think, well, there's no point you get them to do loads this week because they're not going to do it. So you've got to think about the whole course when the assessments are due.
just check out time. Does anybody else want to make a quick comment?
I'd like to
Yep.
say, if we're saying that lectures don't work,
Yep.
they're teacher-centred,
Yep.
they're not about the learner.
Yep.
Anything we do sensibly that's different is better about learning. The student should end up with better grades, and that should be their incentive.
Yeah, well, and or a better learning experience. I'm not sure that it's always better grades. I mean, we've got some evidence of grades slightly edging up, but you know, interestingly, we've also got evidence of the better students doing better in flipped learning, and the poorer students doing a bit weaker. So, yeah. So, but only in some subjects anyway. Let's not go there. Let's not talk it down. We're only a year and a half in. The ship sails on. No, but I agree. On the whole, if I was, yeah, everything that I think about it says this is a better way to learn. Any other quick final comments?
When are students going to Facebook their friends? Because they do it in the lectures at the moment.
Hey?
When are the students going to Facebook their friends? Because at the moment they do it in the lecture.
They are doing the lectures. Actually, just that was a point I wanted.
Go out,
Yeah,
seriously,
they're gonna hate
the
it.
phones come out like that.
Actually, yeah, we got negative feedback from students saying they don't have time to Facebook in active learning sessions because they're too busy doing stuff like that.
I have
But
got a couple tweet, so take a photograph of what we're doing and tweet it out there, and that I
That's
don't
right.
mind as long as I'm not in it. Okay.
On the-
Him with tracheostomy, fine, not me. Thanks.
I think actually on that topic, any tweets from London, Martin?
No, I'm afraid not.
I think we should all tweet London. Tweet, tweet. Hello, London. I think they've all gone for coffee. That's all right. Just in terms of also attendance, like somebody said, how do you keep students coming back? We've had no problem with attendance in our active learning sessions. You know, it's the lectures week 5, week 6, week 7 that's down to 30 or 40%. No, active learning spaces attendance seems to stay at 90 or 95%. And we're not taking attendance, we're just looking around the room and they're all coming every week. So that's actually been a sort of a nice experience for the academics doing it. That's been good. So what I would like to do now is I just checked the time and I've got, how are we doing? 2 o'clock? 5 to 2. And we're going through 2:30, is it? What are we doing? Till 2 o'clock. That's mad. That's mad.
You're
All right.
enjoying yourself.
I know, it's been fun. Well, this is it. This is how much fun you have, I think, when you take yourself out of the centre of presentation and turn up. All right, I'm going to make 1 or 2 concluding remarks, and then I'm just going to talk for a couple of minutes about the video. Right, the concluding remarks are, I'm going to stay here after 2 o'clock, so anybody who wants to sit around and chat is great. One of the things that we could chat about after 2 o'clock is that we didn't get to, is I've got a spreadsheet that looks at our student evaluations that we've been running for the last year, which has got the feedback from students about how they've enjoyed the active learning approaches. So that might be interesting for some people. Probably concluding remarks, since time has remarkably vanished, is the nicest thing for me is thinking that I've come to visit you and actually got a lot of people with very good expertise all in the same space together. So I think Martin might be leveraging off the expertise in some of these things, because obviously it's a conversation that people would like to continue to keep having about the best way to use spaces and the best teaching and learning outcomes to get out of these great spaces you've got. Martin's taken me for a good tour around the place, and I've got to say I really like a lot of your buildings and the spaces in them. I think it's got a really good feeling for it, and I think you can do a lot of great things. I think you've got some professional development, big 2-day thing coming up. Next week? Fabulous, super. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot more things about active and flipped learning, and I think you've got probably in this room the basis of a good core of people for a community of practice, I would think. So I would just like to show the first part of the video. Like, we've got 5 minutes, right? No. Yeah.
When I first got into this room, I was very impressed.
Okay.
So that was it.
Yeah, no.
Things outside of class. It's very, very modern, very progressive, so that's why I really like this one.
I think this is my favourite course so far. It's the best one.
This is quite exciting to come to compared to others.
It's been a pretty good experience so far.
Yeah, it's cool.
I told about some international students that did it last year, and they said make sure you do this course before you go. So I'm actually here this semester because I wanted to do this course.
It's definitely improved the learning environment, and I mean, at the basis of it, that's what we're here to do, so if you can do that, then solid, yeah.
Okay. Oh, where's the off button? Let's escape. Stop! Kill. Close, whatever. All right. But the reason I showed that is it shows a little bit of vision about our learning spaces setup, which is a really quite a high-tech kind of space. But as I was saying at the beginning, the thing that we really wanted to get right first was the teaching design, all based around student engagement. So in terms of a lot of people focus on the technology in the flip, a lot of people obsess about pre-recorded lectures and so on. Our experience has been most of the academics haven't done pre-recorded lectures. They're saying, bugger it if I'm going to give up my time to learn a new software, you know, and they found it very time consuming. So initially we were putting quite a bit of our effort into trying to teach people how to use Camtasia and other Presenter and other capture type things. And it wasn't really gaining traction. But the time that we put into working closely with academics to talk about, you know, teaching design and activity design and rejigging their assessment curriculum, that was really worthwhile. So maybe that's a big takeaway from us. Not all students, so a couple of quick takeaways from our end of the world, which I thought we'd have a bit more time for. Not all students really accept the flipped model. Like, I came to university to hear experts talk. You're asking me to teach myself? What is this? This is some kind of giant joke. But really, they're the minority. So we've got 70 or 80% of students are always positive. Slight exception has been the sort of courses where we're teaching hard skills, in business at least. So when we're doing quantitative studies in economics and mathematics, that's proved a lot more challenging, and they've been a lot more negative. They're going like, why should we talk about writing formulas? I just don't get it. And
well, there was a lovely video you had on your talking about the physician who was saying to students, oh, what was the point to get them to describe a diagram? So they all started, right, do a square, then do a circle in that square, and then a triangle. And what they found within 10 minutes, the students hadn't followed what the lecturer was saying, the physician. And that just shows you, lecturing at somebody is not working. And they soon realised they all had different diagrams.
it's a good example, isn't it? Yeah.
It was fantastic, and that was on your video there. So.
Well, indeed, but we're getting better and better in the accounting and the economics disciplines. So we're rejigging it actually to be. Feedback from students was in those, we have 30% international students, and a lot of the time I think the first time around we did lots of group presentations. So group one way over there, trying to talk to the room, and we've got a kind of a fairly novice learner, maybe a small Asian girl who's got quite a soft voice, and she's not a discipline expert. So the feedback is like people saying like group one was lame, group two was okay, group three was lame, group four was like, group five was lame, you know, and they were saying like this is a waste of time trying to get in that sort of thing. It really didn't work. So what we did was we just changed to different sort of very group focused type things and not trying to share everything all the time. So there's got to be a real point to sharing. It's got to be fairly compelling. If you're going to give up time for people to do presentations, you know, it's got to be good. What we tend to do now is when we get to group presentations, we tend to split the room up because we've got really big learning spaces like this, or bigger even. What we tend to do is to split it into 2 different classrooms running at the same time, or 3 even. So we have 3 groups here, and group 1 will just present to this corner of the room. And group 4 will be presenting to group 4, 5 and 6, and group 7 to 7, 8 and 9. So we're running 3 classes all at the same time. It's a lot more efficient. People still get, you know, the variety of different thoughts and so on. And if there was a point to doing it, there's still a good point to doing it, but we're not making 9 groups be passive. you know, listening to, oh my God, they're quite a lot like that group. It takes a long time, exactly. And more as well, we're putting some things, we're telling students to make videos and put them online, so we're doing a lot of student-generated content as well, and that's a lot of fun. That's a lot of fun. I think I'm kind of running out of breath, and I'm certainly running out of time. So my concluding remark would be thank you. It's been a lot of fun. Very nice. But also from you guys, is there anything else that people want to say? Last questions?
Is this something new?
Yep.
Is flipped classroom something new, or has it been around a long, long time?
Say again, is it?
Is this something new? Flipped classroom?
No, I don't think so.
I've always been taught that way.
Yeah,
I like that.
absolutely.
So
I agree. And you know, the funny thing as well is, like, I've got teenage kids. At school, they learn in groups and seminars and small group works and projects, experiential learning, and then they come to university and they know they're going to get lectures and they know there's going to be 200 and 300. And it's kind of like, and they accept that that's how you learn at university. But I don't think it's a better type of learning. I don't think it's as much fun, you know, and I don't think it's the right way to do it. So it's funny that at universities, you know, it's how we've structured our culture. But I think it's a very positive thing that we are now looking at it very seriously. We're not building any more lecture theatres, and some of our lecture theatres we're, you know, flattening out a bit. So I think we're going to be compensating by doing more online and in the ether, yeah, I think we're going to go to smaller spaces. All right, thank you very much. That was a very enjoyable session. Thank you. Cheers. Thank you. Very kind. Very kind.